everybody, I'm Steve, CEO of Builder, and I'm here live in San Francisco right now. I am so extremely excited to show you the absolute coolest thing that we have ever launched. And so I don't want to take another second for slides. I want to go right into a demo and show you how to bring designs to full-on interactive life faster than you've ever seen before. So here we're inside of the Builder visual editor. And right now we are looking at a design converted into code. So here everything is full-on visually editable code. But that's not what we're showing today. That's not new. That's not exciting. What's exciting is what we can do when we add generative AI directly into what I want to use is the new interface. And let me show you how to do this. So our design is not complete. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say replace this with a table of our users. And so what's unique about this system is not that we are just pulling off a Figma design and working with it now in a coding environment, but more specifically that this is down to extreme detail, aware of all of your design elements and coding elements. Oops, I'm actually in the wrong space. We generated a table from the Cloudscape design system. I want to be in my dashboard demo, and we're going to flip that over here really quickly. Because I got thrown off track, we showed you a sneak peek of what we're going to show in a minute, which is Cloudscape components. But no, this time I want to show the correct components in the correct space. So let's try this one. Replace this with a table of our users. There we go. So what we're doing here is we're actually streaming updates to this code. It's both, one, pulling in our APIs. So here you can see it's actually referencing an API that I connected. Two, it's actually using and reusing our design system. And three, it's aware of both the components in code as well as the components in design. And so here we generated a table. And this is connected to our real, actual live users API. Now, here inside of Builder, we can go ahead and make visual edits however we want. Like I want to fill that space, I want to shrink up that space. And it looks pretty good. But that's not that interesting because this is still a mock-up of an application. And the application has more buttons and controls than just show a table. So let's go in and let's use my favorite prompt. I'm going to click these sorting options, and I'm going to say, make these buttons work. Literally my favorite prompt. Because the AI has a sense of the context of the design, we can actually come in and just say, make this work, make that work. And if it's obvious what those buttons do, the AI will figure that out for us and add the sorting functionality, the state handling, as well as the interactivity. So here, I'm jumping in between, and I can sort the table by location and name. Again, we just took a mock-up of a design that wasn't even complete. We filled in the remaining design from the design system, and we added functionality, connected to real data. Now let me go down here and add another piece. Let's say make these buttons work. Again, I'm not really telling it what it is, but it can decipher those look like pagination buttons in the context of a dashboard in relation to a table. So by just saying make these work, it'll add the click handlers, it'll add the functionality, and we can get it to put our ideas into real motion and then let us start interacting with it and verify if this feels right. So here I clicked next, I went to page 3, page 2, beautiful. We can even inspect the states because it's an entire visual editing environment. I can check out the state, and we can play with the loading. We can use AI to tweak the animation. This was all generated from our design system here in code, connected originally from our design. But let's do one more cool thing. I want to add a little more space down here, and then I'm going to zoom out and say, back to the AI, add a to-do list below this. So we've got this sort of CRM dashboard. Let's prototype what it would feel like to have a real to-do feature so we can track team tasks. And when I say prototype, I'm using that word very loosely, because if you're used to prototypes in, say, a design tool, they're not real. They're not code. They don't export to code. They don't actually use real data, or the interactions are kind of faked and mocked. We're actually doing real stuff here. And I'll show you the real code in a moment that's powering this. But here we're generating this to-do list. As you can see, it's generating the code with the logic and all the different elements here on the side. And we're also going to be able to use this and interact with it and iterate accordingly. Because, again, it's working code. So here, we can go over into our preview mode and scroll down. And I can start adding to-dos. Hello, world. Awesome. This is great. Mark them, delete them. Awesome. And just like you saw, obviously you don't want to watch me do this for an hour, but you can just give feedback and iterate the entire time. This is all real code. So whenever you're ready, whenever you feel good about all of this, hopefully better than where that siren is going right now. Like I mentioned, we are truly live in San Francisco in Soma, where we get sirens about every 5 minutes. But here we can get the actual working code. So here we've got TypeScript code using React. We support a number of frameworks, including full-on native mobile apps, different styling, different test frameworks will generate tests for you as well, and you can customize all of it. For instance, if I zoom in a little bit more so we can see better, maybe we can go all the way in so we can see my text as clearly as possible. Here in my code, it's using my API, which I connected, which is just a simple API that I just made with a Cloudflare worker. And importantly, it's using my preferences. So it's using Tans.query, because that's probably the best React library ever made. So I said that's what I want. The AI uses it every time. It's using state. I can change the state library, TypeScript interfaces. But most importantly, it's using components already in my code base and reusing them when relevant, and it's adding additional code components as well. It's also using my preferences of semantic markup, using asides, nav, and headings, and whenever we're ready, we can just sync this to our code base at any time. I'll show you more on that in a minute, but first, let's step back and see, what did we cover? Once things were working, what did we see? So you may have noticed that I wasn't exactly designing, right? Even though I was using our design system from Figma, the design tokens, the Figma components, and all exact, not a screenshot and a guess. I mean the exact tokens, the exact components, the exact values. But I also wasn't quite coding. You didn't see me write code, though I made something actually interactive. I made it have animations. I gave it real data and APIs, and I used real components from the code base in a live previewing environment. This fills a big gap right now in between your design tools and your dev tools, where people today have to painstakingly write this stuff from scratch, right? We call it a visual development environment. We believe that not every person should be handwriting every line of CSS. You don't handwrite a PDF, you hit export to PDF. The fact that we're designing in detail with components, auto layout, responsiveness, tokens, yet we're kind of guessing, we're writing it by hand, we're looking, we're like, taking a snippet here, that we think can really be automated and improved. But improving that is just one thing, right? What we really want is to get to a point where we can all use natural language to bring products to life and iterate faster and collaborate together more closely. In doing so, the hope is to go from cool AI demos. I'm sure you've seen a million. Look what this AI can do. Look what that AI can do. How many are you actually using? You're probably not using that much. I probably use 2 AI tools regularly. And I've probably seen 25 really, really cool things that didn't quite do what I need because they're not actually really professional-grade tools. Again, if you're generating code, Claude is the most amazing LLM in my opinion. But if I just go right to Claude, it's not going to actually give me code using my components, using my design system, using all the things that I need. A screenshot doesn't convey that. But when you actually connect to the code, tokens, design system components, documents, business context, APIs, et cetera, and pull that into one place, you get this visual development environment where you can build and iterate and create together as a team and innovate rapidly, test your ideas, and get them out to users even faster. Let's show you more really cool stuff that I started to touch on while I was flailing earlier, and we'll show you in actual detail now. So I'll jump back over to Figma, and I really want to show you that Cloudscape example. So I'm going to jump back into Builder. I'm going to make sure I'm using my Cloudscape space. That was the other mistake I made earlier, and there we go. And so now what we're going to do is here's another design, very different design system, and I'm going to import this now. Now in this case, you'll notice something important, which is this is not a tool that every single thing looks the same, right? You saw the first one that I worked with, and now the second one, and this one looks significantly different than the first one. As in, this is using a completely different design system with a completely different set of components and a completely different aesthetic. This is not a tool where everything you produce looks the same. And it's not a tool that gives you thin customizations. Like, this is really exactly how the AWS team designs with a Cloudscape design system. And here is exactly how the AWS team codes with the AWS Cloudscape components in React. We've mapped and converted them, and now we can, as you probably heard before, we can make this stuff real. So I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to say, connect these charts to our log data. And the system, because it's connected to our APIs, is aware we have an API to show the given user's logs, and we'll connect those log data to our charts. So here we go. We see a nice sort of tapering upward trend in our charts. Beautiful. But nothing is complete without some control. And so let's actually show the interactivity in these charts. They're not just static, fake charts. So let's go in here and say, my favorite prompt, make the buttons work. Again, pretty self-explanatory. The buttons are toggle between last month and last week. Don't criticize my design choices. I know I'm using weird design patterns. I made this design. I'm not a designer. The beauty is you can use real designer designs with all of this. And now let's go to the preview mode and try it out. There we go. We got our last month and last week views, and these are actual dynamic chart components. So I've turned these ideas into reality quickly. And again, these are not just prototypes. Every single thing I do in extreme detail is actually done in code. So when I go and hit the Develop tab and I generate the code, you're going to see not only is this all accurate React code, but also it's using a mix of Cloudscape design system components. Here you can see we're importing and how we're referencing these, as well as local components from our code base, as well as components that we will generate and make reusable here as well. Again, we're using React Query. In this case, the API function is a little more complex, so we're actually taking the fetch log data out into its own API, and we're generating a whole set of components here where we can actually jump in and reference them. For example, if I want to go from this log to the chart section, I can just click it and jump to it and sync it to my code when I'm ready. I'm going to show you a lot of cool tricks about syncing to code and iterating and collaborating there. But first, I want to show you a completely different type of use case that I think is really exciting as well. So we're going to jump back into Figma, and we're going to go over to this e-commerce landing page. And in this case, we've got a very different design system look and feel and use case. And so we're going to launch the Builder plugin. We're going to jump into my very aptly named Steve New Demo space, and I'm going to hit the Export button. And so here, the same thing goes. We're going to break this down and make it 100% converted over into code. And as you see, the product does usually work. This is all in beta, by the way, but whatever. Now that we're here inside a Builder, we can see it's nice and responsive and wonderful and does what we need and what we want. But there's a little bit more to it. So inside of Figma, we were able to design all these great rectangles. But Figma is not actually a truly full-on responsive design system. Sure, you can add auto layout with wrapping, but you can't do things like I want different grids on different breakpoints. But you certainly can with real code. And if you don't know how to write real code, we can just let the AI do that. So over here, I'm going to say, I want make this a 3x3 on desktop, 2x2 on tablet, 1x1 on mobile. You can see that you can write it in oftentimes not even the most accurately described, full of typos, and it'll do what I'm saying. And you may have used other responsive tools, but believe me, responsive tools are not easy to learn. Every single one works differently. Every grid system works differently in a different UI. And whether you're a designer, product manager, marketer, or otherwise, this is a skill set that, honestly, wouldn't you rather just skip and just say what you want? And so let's go a preview. Let's check out this. And there's our 3x3. There's our 2x2. And there's our 1x1. That was nice and easy, which is kind of the whole point. Now, let's do something really cool. So this is an example of a site that is connected to Builder over the actual SDKs and APIs, which means we can import and publish this with reviews and workflows directly to our live site. But not only that, we can personalize, and we can use the AI to help us make personalized content without having to do all that by hand. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say, personalize this block. And I'll decide who I want to show a different variation to. And I'm going to say, for my customer type that is maybe a return customer. These come from a customer data platform, by the way, but also could come from any other system you have, even if it's purely internal. And I'm going to say, for that group, let's tell the AI what we want to do differently. For our return customers, I want to say, duplicate this section with a flipped layout, promoting our latest product to our return visitors. So here I just described an idea of what I want. And because the AI is connected to context about our business, in this case, it's actually aware of what our latest product is. It actually is aware of our assets library, so it can pull in relevant inventory. And it knows the details, like the product name, the price, the different aspects. And it can make this personalized variation. When I like it and I'm ready, I can go ahead and just submit this for review. So someone can give it a review, kind of like a pull request. Once approved, we can publish it to our live site. We can make infinite personalizations. We can add A/B tests or just customizations to your heart's content, straight from Figma, edited with AI, and published. And you can use roles and permissions to decide who has access to what types of functionality and customization at any point. And that's only the beginning of it. Honestly, where we see this part going is a world where maybe a year from now, that whenever you've got a new idea, ideas are just the beginning. You've got a page, you have an idea, and what we want to do is throw the AI at it and automatically make on-brand, relevant, personalized variations for your customers and make these pages self-optimized. They run tests, they get back to you with winning variations, all autonomously, but with your complete guidance. So let's move on to one other really cool demo. So back to Figma, let's go back to sort of a more code-driven workflow. And in this case, we want to talk about the #1 feedback we get with this product. And honestly, you've probably heard with any AI product, which is it is great to generate code, but then when you go back to the AI product and say, oh, I need this design change now, what does it give you? All new code that's all different and is not what you had before. And you don't really want to just wipe out and replace code all the time, especially because when you bring code into your code base, you want to modify it. It's meant to be owned by you, not untouched. What's the point of that? So let me show you something really cool that we'll be releasing here pretty soon. So I'm going to do the same thing, export to code, just like you saw. And so I've got this great design today, and I'm just going to pull it over into Builder. And then from Builder, I just hooked up to the wrong space. Hold on, I want to switch this to a different space. This is because of me trying to go crazy with different demos. Switching spaces, we're going to bring this into my CodeSync space, which has special flags on so I can get the new features in them. So anyway, I'm over here, and this is great. I don't need to make any edits in the visual editor. I want to take this straight into code. So I'm going to hit Generate Code, and like you saw, it's going to generate React code. It's going to nicely refactor this, so it saw that there's 3 columns that are basically the same thing. It made those into what it called a category card component. It's iterating over those with props, and it's also adding tests with vtest and React testing library as well. So now, once we have all that, I'm just going to hit sync code, and I'm going to get this command that I run in my code base. So here's my local code base, and I have no changed files now, and I'm just going to paste this. What it's going to do is first scan my code and look at the patterns I'm using. It's probably going to notice I have a components folder, and so sure, I'm going to copy these files to the components folder. Great. You can see we've got our tests, and we've got our category card and our kind of section browse range components. Now, I can commit these, or I can make edits. So maybe I'll go to category card. And one thing that is really interesting is that we found a lot is in Builder, we have a heat map feature if you use the product where you publish to your live site. And frequently, people click on images, whether the image is a link or not. And it can be interesting to see what images people click on, because that's sort of a vague sign of interest in that image. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wrap this image in a button. Don't judge my code. This is just a demo. And I'm going to start tracking clicks of this image. I just want to do this, add on click, and I want to track category card click and the category name. Great. Looks good. I imported my track, or I didn't import my track. Let's actually import my track utility. Great. So I've brought the code in. I've edited it. Now I'm going to commit it. Save. Now let's pretend it's a whole totally different day. So kill everything I got running, kill all these windows. Don't need it, don't need it. Back to Figma. And then our designers made some updates. So our design team decided that they're going to add a couple changes. Let's change this to gray instead, and let's add some secondary text to each of these. So I'll just call it text 1, and let's make it look kind of pretty. Reminder, I am not a designer. Actually was a long time ago, but I completely forgot how to do anything. Text 2 and text 3. Great. So here's Steve's stunning new design. So design team has this update, and we want to sync this in, even though we've already generated code and modified that code. So this time I'm going to hit this copy to builder button. This is the new cool thing that's coming soon, which gives me this option to sync my design change back. What does syncing back means? Well, it means from the frame in Figma to the entry, we call it in Builder, we keep track of which are connected. So if we want to push a design change back into Builder, we can just sync that in and merge those changes in. So here we can see our updated design, and then I can hit develop, and you can see it's aware that we can just pick up where we left off. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to hit the sync command, and I'm going to let it run. And what it's going to do is it's going to notice that the code has been updated, and we're going to be able to grab the latest and pull down the latest design change. So here, I'm going to hit yes, design was updated. Let's pull it in. And then it's going to update the code with minimal changes. So it's not refactoring the entire code. It's not regenerating from scratch. It's keeping the files name the same, the components name the same, and the structure the same. It's augmenting the tests with the updates I want as well. And then we'll be able to sync all of that to our code base all in one command. And we'll take a look at the diff and what's going on there. So if I hit sync code, all I have to do is hit the button because I still had that CLI running. And let's look at the changes. So over here, it added to this category interface a description, and it filled in my descriptions. Beautiful. It changed the color that I wanted here, and then it passed that description through. It then also added the description prop down here, and it added the description text at the bottom as well. Any other changes to the design are factored in, and now I can commit my changes, and you're good to go. With this workflow, you can make design changes, get them into production software, deploy it, change the design again, get it in, and continue. We want to bring your team closer and automate as much as we can so you can focus on the interesting work that you find most challenging, most inspiring, and most essential. In fact, this is really probably how you maybe look at your work today. You've got fun work and you've got busy work, maybe in equal parts. What we want to do, ideally with these AI features, is we want to automate as much of that busy work as possible and give you the capacity to focus on as much of the fun work as possible. So you can stay engaged, you can stay in your flow, and so you can do your highest value work that you're most passionate about and you're going to do best. And if something can be automated, that's automated. In doing so, the goal here as a team is to shrink release cycles. If we can build and ship faster using our exact quality controls, meaning again, our components, our data, our Figma designs, our tokens, our stuff, not made up stuff, our stuff, then we can build better products. When you can release faster, you can release more features, you can release more improvements, you can test on customers more and iterate more. In my opinion, the best quality products are not made by people in a room creating the roadmap of their dreams for 12 months. It's the people who are constantly shipping and testing on customers and refining and nailing, whether it's polish, whether it's UX, whether it is the features and functionality that need to change. We want to bring you closer to your customers and bring you closer to your team members so you can build better products faster. We call this Visual Copilot 2.0, which we're announcing today. The new interface that you just saw is available to everybody right now. The natural language editing of visual content, including making it interactive and real, is starting to roll out as of today. We'll be adding new users every week until we've added 100% of everyone. If you want to be notified when you've got access, when the rollout has reached you, you can go to builder.io/m/notify. And then CodeSync is coming soon. We're working on putting the final touches and letting people in as soon as possible. CodeSync is the flow where you can sync patches in. But don't forget, everybody today can convert designs to code, generate that code with customization. Probably 80% of I showed just now that just got a huge set of refinements and improvements, way more than I can possibly list in this 2.0 launch. You can go to builder.io/sign up to try it out, as well as if you want to talk to our team specifically about can this meet your needs and how would this interact with your workflows, your teams, your design systems, go to builder.io/demo to talk to our team and get expert advice on how to improve and innovate on your workflows using this workflow. If you have questions on any of this, please put it in the YouTube chat because in a moment I will come back here and answer a few of your questions, those that we have time for. But in the meantime, you're probably wondering, how does all this stuff work? I showed cool stuff. It works pretty well after a few hiccups. So what actually is going on? That's where I'm excited to bring Manu up, who's going to tell you all about it. So Manu, come on up.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes.
Lucky for me, I don't have any more demos today. I'm Manu. I'm the tech lead of the AI services and builder. And today I'm here in downtown San Francisco to talk about what my team has been cooking for the last year. But before that, I want to bring up something that developers have been saying for decades, which is make it work right, and make it work fast. And for the people in the audience, especially developers, they will know about this, and they will know that the importance of these three things is the order or the priority of it. You want to, before you spend time trying to make something fast, you have to make it ensure that it works in the first place and it does the right thing. So when we're thinking about building things for AI and the new AI age, we're thinking what are the goals of our team? And we came up with something that is completely integrated, is reliable and predictable, and highly performant. And today I'm going to deep dive a little bit more into each of those and explain a little bit the things we have implemented, the techniques we use, and the engineering decisions that we have taken. So let's look at the completely integrated. You as a developer you might know, I mean, it's kind of obvious that the content of a Jira ticket is not enough to get something done. You may have some relevant Figma design systems, the existing components, there's knowledge of the code base, and even like politics within the organization. There's a lot of context that gets you to actually implement something that can be used within the company. For AI, it's very similar things. The prompt is a very small thing. You have the context of the document, design systems, code base, APIs, and the code styles. And I want you to think about AI here, not just as an LLM, but as a whole architecture of things. And that's what I'm going to try to explain here, what we have done at Builder. First, we kind of build a lot of deterministic systems. One of them is component mapping. And this one is a declarative syntax that companies can use to map Figma components back to the React, Vue, Angular components that they might systemically have. This is 100% reliable. It will not suffer from the hallucinations that an LLM might have. We also build a very powerful CLI. We call it DevTools, that uses the TypeScript compiler and type checker to extract a lot of relevant information within your project. We can learn about how certain patterns without actually using all your code. Mitosis is our open source compiler and framework that takes React-like components and is able to emit code in Angular, Vue, Svelte, and any components. This helps to reduce the uncertainty that LLMs might have when trying to use different frameworks. Decision tree allow us to ingest massive amount of data, for example, from a big Figma design, and steer it down into small pieces we can delegate to an LLM. Advanced RAG to know about, collect data and be able to understand how the company you want things to be done. Then we leverage LLM vision to understand very complex UI patterns that cannot be explained as columns or rows. It can be something like graphs. The chat you can talk to. And finally, custom instructions that the company can use to enforce certain code styling, testing, storybook requirements. And I want to emphasize that in the middle of all this is the sweet spot between systems that are deterministic and non-deterministic. You can build something that behaves more like a pro tool. Again, all the thing I told before is not just a nice thing to have. It's a must thing if you want to go from a cool demo to a pro tool that you can rely on. The next one is about being reliable and predictable. And here it's all about iteration. And you may be the smartest developer in the world with the most experience, but you will find yourself many times debugging, iterating, trying different things. The iteration is what makes things to go forward. You need to check with the ground truth of reality. We expect LLMs too much. We ask too much to LLMs. We expect that they take a very complex problem and in one go come up with a perfect solution. So at Builder, we came up with Gen agents. And Gen agents are much smaller models that take a much narrow scope, a much narrow context with a very particular task, a very specific task. And the cool thing about it is that we run it in loops where we validate and bring back the feedback so we can iterate multiple times. Here, the speed is key. We rather have dumber models that can loop very fast than the biggest one that might take a multiple time. The beauty of this design is that we can stack them together. Different agent models can work in a specific task. One can be about animations, interactivity, wiring up data, like we saw before. And we can run those in parallel. Again, it's not just a nice thing to have. You need iteration when you go from simple things to complex systems. And last but not least is performance. This is where we put a ton of thought into it. First of all is one of the I'm more excited about, which is the custom models. In a naive implementation of a system with LLM, where you just is a wrapper of LLM, you have a ton of input that goes through LLM, and then it comes back as an output. And again, the input is not just the prompt, it's a ton of things I said before. So this can be slow, and it's kind of represented with these lines. What we are trying to do, and now we need to wait for the LLMs to finish. All right. So we go to the next one. And this is what we implemented. We implemented fast input or downstream models and upstream models that can take this input very fast, only delegate the key parts to an LLM, and bring back the content. That's what we showed before, but I want to reemphasize and show another demo here where we compare getting some design done from Figma using Builder and Claude, which is an amazing tool. We actually use it a lot. But this is optimized for this particular use case. So when we play, this is something I saw before. We have the Figma design, and we have also the same context in Claude. In around 8 seconds, more or less, we get the design done in Builder, which includes all the code that I showed before. And then Claude is still writing all this code. This is because it's not because it's bad. It's just because it's getting all this work to do, all this input and output. It has to be only done by an LLM. The next one is about rendering AI updates. LLMs are slow. So if we didn't have any sort of streaming, you will be just staring at the empty screen until it just comes out. Lucky for us, pretty much everyone implements some sort of streaming. So from a UX or UI perspective, you see things happening, you think things are happening, and you are happy with it. But it doesn't really improve the iteration speed. You still need to wait until it finishes so you can iterate. We can go even faster with out-of-order streaming. And in this case, it leverages what we said before about the gen agents can take different parts and emit all these updates in an async way. So in this improvement, you actually speed up the iteration loop. You can go a little bit faster than that, and you can have partial evaluation with out-of-order streaming. This sounds like very fancy words. Like probably we're coming with some React background here. But the idea is that we can update these joints part of the tree without emitting any code in between. So this will allow things like rename something, and it will find what it is across the entire page, and just makes the patch updates all across it without having to re-emit every single thing that is there, including the styles, including all the things that probably doesn't change. And all these iterations, most of the code stays the same. So let's just show another demo here where we use what we showed before, where we have some design and we are going to prompt to make an update. First in Builder, it's just prompted and it just happens. 3 seconds more or less. And let's try the same in Claude. Claude is not just like it's slow. The problem here is not like Claude is slow or the LLMs are slow. The problem again is that it takes all this context. It needs to take it all in, all out for every single update. So it's not a fine-tuned, fine-grained update of the change. So it took 15 seconds. So now, when we're talking before about the release cycles and being able to iterate fast, this can hurt you. I want you to think here not about 15 seconds or 3 seconds. Those are just examples that I pick up. I think the important thing here to think about is that with this current system, as the document grows in complexity or just grows in size, the time to render, the time to iteration grows linearly. Not only that, the more context there is, there's more chances for hallucinations to pop in. With our architecture, we can pretty much keep this stable. So it doesn't matter if your design is a small cart or it's a whole landing page. You are able to make updates that take the same amount of time. And again, just to finish, this is not a nice thing to have. It connects with everything I said before. This is a tool for humans. We need to make a tool that is pro, but is fun. We can iterate fast. And stay fundamentally in the flow. You cannot be waiting for it the entire time. And now we are getting back to Steve for some Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manu. Let's go into some Q&A. So we've collected some questions from y'all from the YouTube's chat, and let's dive into a few. I might demo a little bit of stuff as well. In fact, let's start with the first one. First one, I'm glad you asked, do I have to use Tailwinds? No, not at all. So if you're used to a tool that requires you to use Tailwinds, this one sure doesn't. In fact, we can go ahead and show that really briefly. Let's go back into Figma, and maybe I'll take a simple design, and maybe I can open up, oh cool, I've got something open here already. So this is using Tailwinds, but let's switch to something else. Let's go to CSS modules. If you use standard CSS code or CSS modules, there you go. This is all powered by mitosis as well as LLM. So again, what Manu was talking about, we want that deterministic control with that bit of LLM magic that makes for clean, structured code. So here is generating CSS. It is using our CSS variables in this format. In Tailwind, it used Tailwind variables. And then here we're referencing all those styles with CSS modules. The styling system doesn't matter. You can use whatever styling system that you want. Even if it's not supported in this list, you can use custom instructions to literally write any format you want, and the AI will use that. This is also not limited just to React. Let's change things up and move over to Swift UI. And here we can generate native code using Swift UIs, VStacks, text, scroll views, etc. And again, it will work as expected. The native outputs are in beta. Jump in and use them anytime. Vue, React, doesn't matter. Let's go to the next one. So can we generate without designs? Yeah, why don't we go in here? And I showed a couple, but why don't I show one more? Here's an example. And the beauty is because we generally start with Figma, but we don't have to, this environment can either come in from Figma or it can be using the components you have and reusing those. If I jump in here and say, let's say, add a section below this with an image on the left and text on the right, we can go ahead and generate that, whatever we asked for, and whatever you have, it'll continue to match. So if you've got stuff in code, it'll reuse that. If you've got stuff inside of Builder already, it'll reuse that. And there we go, our nice, beautiful new section. We can do that. I'll show you an example where maybe let's jump to a very different example, and we can do that as well. So here you saw we generated this to-do list, which was something that wasn't designed, but it used the design here. But let's go and add, let's do one more thing. Say add a section below this that has 2 columns showing big numbers of highlights of the user's data. And just whatever the prompt is, I'm literally making these up on the fly, by the way. As you saw from the beginning of the video, this is absolutely a live demo. So we're just going with it, whatever we come up with, we're just doing. And here, we're streaming the update. And as you can see, it's borrowing and reusing our styling, our brand, from anything we've connected previously or anything it sees right here in the window that we're working within. And if you want to override anything, you absolutely can. Or if you want to give more feedback, add one more column, you absolutely can. And it keeps track of the context and will continue working with exactly sort of like what you're expecting. So let's keep going, and let's see. What else do we want to do? Oh, this is an interesting one. Can you guarantee privacy with LLM models? So one thing I forgot to mention is for enterprises, you can connect your own LLM as well. So you don't have to use our LLM. You can literally plug in your Claude, your OpenAI, your Llama 3, and use that. So if you have privacy restrictions around what AI and LLM can be used, you can use your systems. We will not have a single LLM looking at your data or your content through our own systems. Oh, another cool one. What about local development and localhost APIs? Can it work locally? It totally can. Because the thing to know here is this right here that I'm pointing at and looking at on the screen, this is an iframe. So what that means is I can have this connected to localhost APIs just fine, and I can also point this to my localhost as well. So for example, if I go to my Cloudscape demo, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll run my dev server here, and then maybe I'll make some changes. Like I actually tweak some of these components just for fun. That's not what I want. I think I want builder, components. There we go. So let's go in here and we'll take this table component and let's make some changes. So maybe I want my table component to behave a little bit differently. We can actually do 2 things, which is kind of cool. So first, I'm going to connect this to my local host. I'm actually going to use this little override that is particularly convenient that I like to use. So I believe I'm running at localhost 3000, and this will update to use, cool, my localhost 3000. And then I can make changes. The first thing to know is I can actually make changes to the props right here. So I can jump into like the loading state or change the selection type from single to multi. Or I can go in and make whatever other changes I want to as well. I'm trying to think of something I can do locally, like a table prop that maybe I might want to do. Let's maybe, for instance, just kill these column definitions entirely and see how it breaks our components. I think I might have just broken the thing entirely by deleting that, but you get the idea. We're fully connected to our local environment and can do anything that we want here. Moving on to additional questions. Another good one, can I plug this into my own headless CMS? The answer is 100% yes. You can use our headless CMS if you want, so you can plug in your own. If you just want to use this as a visual layer for personalization, visual creation, and publishing connected to other CMS systems, 100% can. And then one last question before we jump to our next session, which is, where can I deploy this? And so you can deploy this anywhere you like. We are not a hosting platform. We host literally nothing. This is all your code. Like there's another question, like do these components go into build or go into your code? This is your code. You own your code. Deploy anywhere that you like. Vercel, AWS, Netlify, I'm blanking on all the other cool ones. You get the idea. It doesn't matter whatsoever. Everything is your code. You own it. Whether you're using the APIs, you're pushing content through your own infrastructure, or the code gen, you're just moving that into your code base, and you own that entirely. So that concludes the amount of time we have for questions. You can always follow up, and you can always tweet at me, or I guess everybody today is moving to Blue Sky. Blue Sky at me. I'm going to try and check Blue Sky. LinkedIn message me, whatever. I'll try to answer your questions there as well. Otherwise, I'm excited to talk to Sunny, the VP of Engineering at Descript, to talk a little bit more of AI and AI workflows and how they use them in their teams day to day. So. Cool. We're here with Sunny. We just transformed. We teleported over here. So Sunny, please introduce yourself. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you for having me here. My name is Sunny. I lead engineering for a company named Descript. We build video editing tools and make it easy to create video, as easy as creating a document.
So I am a Descript power user, and most importantly, I want people to know one interesting thing. I've used Descript forever, and Descript is one of the very first AI tools that, in my opinion, was actually extremely useful. So when I make videos, the number one thing when I post online, people ask is, how do you make those subtitles? And the answer is Descript every single time. They've been doing AI before AI was cool, and so I want to talk a little bit about that. So in my workflow, there's only two AI tools I use regularly. I use an IDE with autocomplete, so either Cursor or GitHub Copilot, and I use Descript. And so we've noticed a million AI demos. There's so many things that people see, and at least for me, I use very few of them, even though I get excited for so many. And so I want to get your opinion, Sunny, on what makes a difference between AI tools that actually get mainstream adoption, like Descript did, and what separates that from the things that are cool demos, but you don't really seem to see people using regularly?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the basics here apply, and I feel like they need to be stated. For a long time, we were really focused on solving user problems, and for us, the only way to do that was AI. Transcription is something that's a very well-known use case, but that was the paradigm on which Descript was built. And so transcription accuracy, solving problems like word-level alignment was a core part of making the product useful. With that said, in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of noise. Creating Twitter demos is a lot easier, but as we say, in engineering, the first 80% is only half the work. And that's what it feels like with building AI features. It's really, really easy to create an AI demo, but creating an AI system, creating a product, leveraging AI is a lot harder. And so really for us, it's been, trying to separate the signal from the noise, and there's a lot of noise out there. So stay focused on your customers, solve problems that really matter, and make sure you're iterating with them.
So you brought up a lot of interesting points. One that I think is really interesting too about Descript is you use a combination of training your own models in cases and using larger models in some cases, like off the shelf. Manu presented about how we do that as well. We do that for a certain balance of speed and reliability. To the extent that you're able to share, how do you make those choices between building with large language models or large models and training your own, maybe arguably smaller models?
Yeah, so I think the way we've always thought of technology is we want to use technology to solve our users' problems. And so what that means is we typically bias towards using third-party vendors as much as possible. And we only actually try to build things in-house if we think we can do them 10x better, or if we think we can solve the problem in a way that isn't actually solvable through using a third-party API. There are very few cases where performance or cost is a factor, but I would say largely we're trying to just make sure we solve user problems as quickly as possible. And the reality is there's more problems that we want to solve for our users than there's engineers that can solve them. And so we're always biasing towards using third-party solutions. So specifically with LLMs, what we found is we start mostly all AI product development with LLMs today. And then there's few cases where fine-tuning an LLM or we build specifically like models that are not available through LLMs today. So specifically, like a good example of this is this model called Studio Sound, which is responsible for essentially removing background noise or reverberation or echo. And that's just not possible through LLMs today. It might be in the future, and we might just switch to an LLM then. But for now, there's a lot of audio and video related use cases that we build in-house models that are much smaller and more performant and scalable.
Totally. Also, he's underselling Studio Sound. That is the coolest feature in the world. When people think I use a good microphone, I don't. I use my MacBook Pro built-in garbage microphone, and I click on Studio Sound, and it makes me sound like I'm a professional podcaster. So I know some people who use Descript just to turn on Studio Sound, and it's awesome. I had no idea they trained that model themselves. But you mentioned something really interesting, very close to my heart. The whole point of building is to deliver what customers need, and you want to do it as fast as possible, so you jump for something off the shelf right away when you can. There's literally 1,000 times more things than you can ever do at any time. So that's sort of the idea of today, right? Is like, hey, everyone's trying to figure out how to use large language models, these new sort of like foundation models for their use cases. And a lot of the use case we're talking about so far today is sort of building and shipping faster, a lot of the front end focused, like, design and dream up the experience and get it live. In your world, like, can you elaborate on like what happens when you move faster? Like if Descript's team could move 10x faster, like what would happen? You'd have 1,000 more features. What would that look like?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say, like, I've worked at large companies, I've worked at startups. One of the cool things about working at startups and smaller companies is the rate of change, right? Things move really, really fast. And that makes everyone's job just much better. No one likes to be in environments where things are very sluggish, they take 10x as long. If you're working on a product, it takes years to ship. And so I think one way that I personally feel really excited about is with AI, if we're able to accomplish more, then I think it makes all of our jobs more exciting. So I want to start with that. And I think the other thing that I'm curious if you want to kind of touch on, Steve, is essentially this idea of AI is going to take away our jobs, and I want to I also don't quite believe in that, so we can go in that direction too.
Totally, no, it's a good one. I mean, that's the question, right? If you can move faster, do companies generally want to get the same amount of work done with less effort, or does their appetite grow and they want to get more done? I will say that both of our products, I think, enable people to move faster. So let me take Descript as an example. I won't talk about Builder. No bias here. I'm a Descript user. What happened when I started using Descript? So I used to use iMovie or Final Cut to make videos. And you know what I did? I made so few videos because I just didn't have time to make that many. With Descript, I hit record, I ramble, I hit a button to cut out all the empty space, I delete words, and I ship it. And I've shipped like high-quality videos, multiple in a day. My appetite grew. I didn't spend less time making videos. I spent a lot more time making videos because also the videos got a lot better. I was posting these and people were liking them, and I was able to iterate. I would post to Reddit and they'd say, this is garbage and this is why, and then I would make it better according to that. And so the quality improved, my speed improved, and what I found was the videos were such a valuable thing for me and also for Builder. I invested more than I ever would have. If I was stuck using Final Cut for all videos, I would have never made as much, made them as good, and we probably would have never invested in video because it just wouldn't have made sense for us. So that's a case where as I moved faster, I was able to do more, and my appetite grew 10x faster than I was able to do it. What we found with Builder, like historically when people integrate the product, same thing happens. So traditionally we've had our publish product where you can drag, drop, publish to your site or app or import from Figma. And what do people want to do? They don't just say like, oh, we got those 10 landing pages done, so now we go home, not even remotely. They're like, great, next quarter we're going to do 1,000 landing pages, something crazy. We're going to pro magazine. They just more. And as you do better at something, you invest more. Another way I look at it is if you can hire, I hate this metaphor, I'm going to use it because I don't have a better one. You can hire a 1x engineer or you can hire a 10x engineer. I'd rather have 5 10x engineers, right? That's a competitive advantage for my business. You saw Manu talk. He could talk fast. He could code 1,000 times faster. It's amazing. A lot of the stuff he's talking about he knows because he can code so fast and get it done so effectively. And that's what makes him really, really great. So the more, in my opinion, you can be an engineer using latest tools and be a 10x engineer or move 10x faster, you become more value and in demand. While AI does raise the floor, so not everybody has some level of engineering skills, I will be totally honest. Like one question I often get is like, what are the limitations of these systems? The limitation is you're going to eventually work yourself into a corner in certain cases. Like I've used Cursor and their Composer, and I've generated, like I made this whole like website with it. It was awesome until I hit this really, really, really weird esoteric remix bug. I was using Remix as a framework. It was a really weird bug. The AI just made it worse and worse and worse and never recovered. And I have friends who are not technical who got stuck there, and that was it. Luckily, I have the skills to unblock myself and keep going. So I get all the speed benefits, and I have the expertise. That's the ideal, but basically what I'm saying is, in this case of being able to raise the floor, we also raise the ceiling, and you can have superpowers on top of your skills, and you have new powers you've never had before. That's my opinion, though. What do you think about this? Let's say your team can move 10x faster. How do you resource that? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's 100%. I think what's happening actually at Descript. Since you did speak about Descript, I'll speak about Builder because we're actually recent happy customers. We recently migrated to Builder, and we have the same number of people working on our marketing website. And obviously, with the marketing website, the marketing team really, really cares about iterating really quickly. And so now we're able to actually ship new pages in under an hour. We're able to just like ship more pages, and we're able to do more A/B experimentation, and that just means that more people are being creative, more ideas are being tested, and as a result, it translates down to like user value. So we're definitely seeing that in this specific instance with Builder, and I agree we've seen that with Descript. I think more people are now creating content because they can create them faster, because they can learn a tool faster. And so that's exactly what I see the impact of AI on software development as well.
Totally, it's cool. This was not planned, by the way, that we had these examples of using each other's products. The last question I want to ask, so one of the biggest questions we get, I've demoed this that you see more successfully usually to a number of other companies, and the number one question that I've gotten is, so what do we do differently? Like, what does the workflow change actually look like? They actually want to put this into practice, and in many cases, they want to maximize the value. They're like, I want to get the most out of this new world. I want to move fast. I want to be more innovative. Tell me what to do. And I'll be honest, this stuff is very new. I don't have the one answer for the best way to use these new tools. I'll tell you there's two paths though, and I want to get your input on if I'm missing anything or anything else you'd add. So path one is change almost nothing. Only replace the middle. So you always have a design, you always have code, and just speed up and automate the middle, where you are taking the designs and turning them into code faster, but nothing really changed. The same person's doing the same things, they're just using some additional tooling to speed up the process. That's great on its own. The other aspect, though, that starts to get interesting is when we talk about that in-between of design and code, a visual development environment, who's in that platform most? And does it depend on the use case? Like one of the most common ones I've seen that's really interesting is companies of all sizes, all the way from Fortune 5 all the way down to small businesses, being really excited to first adopt this for internal tooling. Because they're like, hey, nobody wants to work on my internal tools. The internal tool doesn't have to be perfect. If the beta product isn't perfect, if the LLM isn't perfect, it's fine, it's an internal tool. Our internal tools suck, they're ugly, they're not up to date, nobody's updating them. What if I just have my designer use the design system to put out a screen, the designer brings it into the tool, connects it to the data, and hits publish, and it's live, and it's a dashboard that we can start using and interacting with. We've got reviews for mission critical data, et cetera, and we can do that. In another world, the developer is in the visual development environment, and they're responsible for bringing the designs in, working them into our code, augmenting, what am I calling, diffing, patching, et cetera. And I don't think there's a right answer. You can find any balance you want. But if you blank slate and you're like, hey, everyone's got magical superpowers in your team, what does the workflow look like? Do you have an idea of what that would be?
I think it's going to be, I think it turns out changing people's workflows is really hard. And so, the people who are just starting software development now, they're using these tools very differently than my most senior experienced engineers that already have a workflow set up. And so they're trying to fill in their gaps today with areas that they find really helpful. I try to get a sense of like how people are using these AI tools, and the number of use cases is really, really broad. And so sometimes, I have engineers use LLMs just to ask it questions to learn a new part of the code base. And that's actually a pretty interesting use case. Or if they're trying to fix a bug in a particular part of the code base that they don't quite understand, but they don't actually think that they need to go deep into it to like build new features. LLMs are a really great way to kind of help investigate, find some areas that you could actually look into. Versus I think people who are just getting started with smaller code bases, smaller internal tools, they're using these tools to completely generate everything from scratch, because the alternative is to not do it at all. So I think it really depends, and I'm actually personally just excited about where we're at, which feels like very, very early in this journey. And in the next couple of years, I'm sure things will change significantly.
Totally. Well, I think it's a great point to end here. I could not be more excited. Thank you so much, Sunny, and thank you so much, everybody, for joining. This was incredibly exciting. If you want to learn more and try this out, you can jump into builder.io/signup and try out the product right now. If you want to sign up to be notified, you might have access already to the features that I showed, but if you don't already, you can sign up at builder.io/m/notify to be notified when the rollout has reached you. And then stay tuned for our coaching feature in the future. You can follow us, sign up for our newsletter, anything like that. And if you want to see a hands-on demo on exactly how this can work and answer your questions about how this would work with your design systems, your code, your unique business details, you can talk to an expert on our team at builder.io/demo. Thank you so much for attending the Visual Copilot 2.0 launch, and I can't wait to see what you build.